Okay.
Harvey, you're there, I see. Okay, good.
Yeah, good morning.
Listen, Ed,
We're not there yet.
what comes first, the chicken or the egg?
We're not there yet. I'm giving this back to you. Thank you. It was very helpful. Very good. We didn't need as much at the end, but the beginning part.
Some of the diagrams are great.
Yeah. Okay.
He said, this is Central Village. He said, he gave it to you. But it was Mayayish. It's yours.
People will stop playing to and the next thing you know.
Well,
Never.
we actually.
That's why people don't play with me.
We met a couple here whose last name is the same last name as Ern's maiden name.
But they're,
Spelled the same.
but they're
And
not
they
related.
claim that they are not
All
related.
right. There are names. Paretsky. Is the name they gave.
Poets?
They would give that name if an unmarried girl had a baby. Because the poets got at it. Yeah, so Paretsky's are almost never each other.
You never know.
Did you ever?
Well, you never know.
Did you tell that?
He's grandson of the poets. We're starting.
Well, we'll start in a bit. We'll do
Where?
the sponsors. Where am I going to start? I don't know. I gotta.
Go back a page. Always go back a page.
Let's see. We'll find a good place.
All right, so do the dead people.
Okay, well, that's. I spoke to Schiffer yesterday. I'll see how Sam is doing.
Yeah,
He's improving.
good.
Well enough to go out and.
He said he took a walk.
Well, they were going out to meet some family who was down in the area.
Sunday night, she wanted to dinner without him.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a date with another couple, and he said, "You go, don't stay home." So
I
she
know
did.
he's
He's an old guy.
well, it's not so just that. He's not happy
Yeah.
with the medical
Well,
procedure.
he's had a lot of stuff. And
Yeah.
most people aren't happy walking around with a ostomy.
Mhm. Okay, we're going to start our sponsors. All right. Sue and Year of Learning, Sue and Arnie Gerlich in memory of Malcolm Croman and Philip Mann. And Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Beryl ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Yosef Meir ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Henya Rivka Pro Roz. Hirsch. And in memory of Pestel about Harav Tzvi. In memory of her husband, Dr. Uriel Paul Federbush, Uriel Pinchas ben Harav Shimon, Sharon and Fred Lisker, their family and many friends, in memory of her dear mom, Harriet Friedman, Elbas Yaakov, Leslie and Gail Kaplan, in memory of their parents, Harry and Marjorie Sedell, Irving and Pearl Kaplan, friends of Avi Gitler, Avram Meir ben Shimon, and Martha Gitler, Charna Bat Yeshaya, children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren of Toby Paris, Saratova Bat Yisrael, in her memory. By
It's
Gary
Elo.
and Marsha Schrager in memory of his father David Ben Yosef and his mother Freda Bas Hendel. Dov Bodlander in memory of his parents Tzvi Ben Yaakov Yitzchak and Bela Drasha Bas Harav Dov Ber, and his in-laws Yehuda Tzvi Ben David Nachum and Alta Chaya Bas Avram Yosef. And Mel and Haran Haller in memory of his father Avram Ben Zev. A week of learning by Edie and Steve Vigdor in memory of her mother Glickl Bas Avram Yaakov. Charlie Gelfenstein in memory of his brother Shimon Ben Meir. That is it for today. May the Shemas have an aliyah. Crank to Rafi about the Yeshir Shema Tzliah. So B'nai Israel a good gebench yard. So a reminder, 4:30 this afternoon. Those who will be attending at Century Grill was where we will finish the actual siyum, finish the Gemara. Okay. So you have to bring anything?
Your wife.
You're going to bring your wife.
Your wife, if you
And your
pay for
credit card.
two, and a credit card if you don't have cash,
Okay. All right.
or your girlfriend if your wife wants to stay home.
Your girlfriend spent the money with the credit.
You have to have you have to be a fast talker.
But if you break, bring your girlfriend and your wife.
That's what he said.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
With two credit cards.
You guys, my wife
You know-
wouldn't let me get away with that.
You know what? You got to tell your wife just because there's snow on the roof doesn't mean there's no fire in the furnace.
Wood did that, way, you know.
Okay. Tana Rabbanan, Anun Hey, Amud Beis, the very last line.
Okay. so
Right,
we
the
are-
Braita teaches.
Yeah.
Minayan shekol hamishmarot shavot bichiluk lechem hapanim. How do we know that all of the watches were equal regarding the lechem hapanim distribution? Right? We go on to Nun Vav, today's Gemara, and tells us what Talmud Lomar, the text taught us, chelek kechelek yochelu, right? That they should eat the portion by portion. What does that imply? Kechelek avodah, kach chelek achila. Okay, the same the way one did their portion of work, I'm going to eat. Okay,
That's
the Kohanim share. Umay achila. So what are they eating? What do I say? Ilema korbanot. If we're saying that they were eating the actual offerings, mehatam nafka. That actually is derived from a different pasuk, namely the Kohen hamakriv ota lo tihiyeh. Says the pasuk, right? To the Kohen who does the work, he gets the food, right? Okay, so what happens?
Therefore, not everybody is equal.
That would imply that, right, that Kohen gets at least the majority share, all right? Unless, of course, remember the Kohen Gadol decides, I want to do it, because he always takes precedent, all right? El lechem panim. What about a lechem panim? Yechol af bechovot habaot shalom mechemat haregel baregel. Okay, so what is that telling us? It's possible there that we're talking about other obligations that are brought not in terms of the requirements of the holiday. Why is that phrase there? You have nidarim, you have nidavot,
Because everybody's in
right? Because
Jerusalem.
people have come to Yerushalayim for the regel, and they figure, well, since I'm going already, I'll
my
bring
chef
this,
soul.
whatever I have to, that I made for some other reason, okay? Talmud,
Rabachatis.
okay, right, Talmud Lomar, so what is it telling us? Lavad mimim karav al avot, okay? With the exception excuse me, right? Of what was transacted by our ancestors. Ma machru ha'avod zelazeh. So the Gemara asks, Art Scroll translated as what did the forefathers sold to each other? I didn't like that
Well,
translation.
Memker.
Okay, well, that's the language, right?
So they negotiate.
Okay, what did they negotiate or work out? Okay, namely, ani b'shabati v'ata b'shabatcha. I will get when it's my turn on that week, and you will get your turn on that week, right? Okay. Now, going to a new piece. Ba'atzeret omer lo helech b'chulei. Right? The Mishnah told us on Atzeret, when it occurred on Shabbat, they gave them out matzah and they gave them out challah. The matzah was from the showbread, and the leavened bread was the lechem apanim.
No, shtei lechem.
Shtei lechem. Okay.
Lechem apanim is the showbread.
All right. So that was
I
lechem
don't know what
apanim.
that means, but lechem apanim
Okay.
is the matzah.
All right. Okay. Lechem apanim was the matzah?
Yes,
Yeah.
and the shtei lechem
All right. So
was
that's
the
shtei lechem.
only chumetz except for the 10 with the shlomim.
All right. Then I've got to go back and see what note I missed then with Koren, because they seem to give a different.
He couldn't have. Yes.
Right. Okay. Anyway, so in other words, that was given out. Some portions of shtei halechem and some portions of lechem apanim.
So the issue is why he gave the lechem apanim first.
Okay. So we're going to see that in just a second. So in other words, having recited the fact that here's this and here's that, okay, and the fact that they said the lechem hapanim first, does that seem to imply that that has precedence? Okay, so let's see what happens. All right, Itmar, about this it was said, Rabbi Amar, says Rabbi, Sukkah ve'achar kach zman. Okay, we have another example of which takes precedence. Okay, is it this bracha when you enter the sukkah? Do you say that leishe b'sukkah first, or do you say the zman bracha shechianu? Rabbi Bar Chana Amar zman v'achar kach sukkah. He says zman comes first, shechianu, and afterwards leishe b'sukkah. What happens? Now the Gemara is going to clarify where each one had their position. Rabbi, okay, Amar, Rav, actually I have here. Right,
It
Amar,
was Rav.
right? Amar, Sukkah ve'achar kach zman, Sukkah first and then Shechinu, Chiyuv v'diyoma adif, that the requirement of that day is the preferred reason. Rabbi Bar Chana Amar, Zman, v'achar kach sukkah. Shechianu and afterwards. Why? Tadir v'sheino tadir, tadir kodem. Okay? That we say Shechianu much more frequently throughout the year than Leishe Basukkah. So that should come first. Okay? So the Gemara now says, Lema, Rav Bar Chana, beplugta de Beit Shammai u Beit Hillel. Shall we say that Rav and Rabba Bar Chana are dealing with the very same machloket that existed between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel? The Tanu Rabbanan, as the Braita teaches, the Varim Shabein Beit Shammai u Beit Hillel, B'Su'udah, okay, this argument between the two of them regarding the meat. Beit Shammai Omrim, what does Beit Shammai say? The following, Mevarech al Hayom, V'achar kach Mevarech al Hayayin, that you bless the day first, and then afterwards you say the blessing on the wine. Okay, so what happens? Beit Hillel Omrim, Mevarech al Hayayin, V'achar kach Mevarech al Hayom. No, you say the blessing over the wine first, then the blessing for them. What happened? Beit Shammai omrim mevarech al hayom v'achar kach mevarech al hayayin. Okay, why? Shahayom gorem liyayin sheyavo. Okay, that it were not for that day, and it was Shabbos. Okay, you wouldn't be drinking necessarily the wine. You might have something else to drink.
Beer.
Okay, ukvar kidesh hayom. Not only that, but since the day actually already started by the time, okay, that's the day has been consecrated simply by the change of the hour, by the change of time. Okay, so what happens? Ukvar kidesh hayom. Va'adayin yayin lo ba. Okay, and only then do you have the wine coming later. Ubeit Hillel omrim, what do they say? All right, mevarech al hayayin, v'achar kach mevarech al hayom. Say the blessing for the wine first, and then the shahayayin gorem lekidusha, because it's the wine that's, I'm going to use the word necessary here, okay, in order to recite the sanctification blessing.
Because you could use lechem.
You could.
It's the wine that occasions the kiddush.
I don't know if it's exactly the same. Okay, in other words, Shotei Amar, because you could say, all right, the following, Davar Acher. You could give another example. Birkat Hayayin Tadira.
They say causes.
Yeah, right? Okay, right. So Davar Acher, Birkat Hayayin Tadira, Birkat Hayom Einat Tadira. That the blessing for the wine is more common than the blessing for the day. And again, tadir v'she'eno tadir, tadir kodem, which is more frequent, takes precedence. So what happens? Lema, so we're going to say, was this arguing before Rav and Rabba Bar Bar Chana? Did they follow the same pattern as we see between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel? Lema, Rav da Amar ke Beit Shammai. Should you say then that Rav follows the approach, I'll use, of Beit Shammai, the Rabba Bar Bar Chana da Amar ke Beit Hillel, and that Rabba Bar Bar Chana follows the view of Beit Hillel? Is that the case? Amar lach Rav. Rav could come back and argue and present the following view. Ana da Amrei afilu le Beit Hillel. I can say my position even according to the view of Beit Hillel. Why? Ad kan lo ka'amrei Beit Hillel. In other words, on this issue that we see the machloket of Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel. Okay? Beit Hillel only presented its view. Hatam, there in that case. Okay?
You skipped. Ad kan lo ka'amrei Beit Hillel.
Ad kan lo ka'amrei Beit Hillel hatam. Yeah. Ela shahayayin gorem lekudusha shetei omer. Okay, that it's the fact that the wine enables us, okay, to say the kiddush as part of sanctification of the day. Aval hacha, but in this case, okay, okay, loves man, were it not the time, milo amrin and sukkah, would we even say the blessing of Leshev B'Sukkah,
if it wasn't Sukkot.
but whatsoever. On the other hand, Rabba Bar Bar Chana Amar, he would argue the following: Ana da Amrei afilu leBeit Shammai. I make my position even according to the view of Beit Shammai. Ad kan lo Amrei Beit Shammai hatam ela shahayom gorem liyayin sheyavo. That there Beit Shammai only argues because it's the day that causes the wine to be utilized, so to speak. Aval hacha, but here in this case, he loves Sukkah, were it not for the occasion of the holiday of Sukkot, Milo Amrinan Zman, would we even say Shechianu blessing at that time?
I think
Yeah.
imla ilav sukkah, even if you don't have a sukkah, milo amrin and hazman, wouldn't you still say shehechiyanu? It is sukkahs. You do not have a sukkah, but you still say shehechiyanu. So therefore it has kedima.
Okay, that's a different shot than.
I understand, but I think that's the
Okay,
logical
all I'm
shot.
simply
the
saying,
position.
see, neither Art Scroll nor
I
Quran raise
understand,
that.
but
issue.
Rashi
They don't. They don't.
But Rashi does.
Okay.
And
All right, so let's go on. So what happens? Tnam. Now we have a new text. Ba'atzeret Omerlo, right? We said now that on that holiday of where it coincided with Shabbos, after all, it said in the Mishnah, Helech Matzah, Helech Chametz. In other words, he gave out the matzah first and the chametz second. Vahahacha, and here the chametz ikar umatzah tafel. It would seem then from this.
no, this is the question.
Yeah.
But
Okay, but vaha, and here in this case, here the chametz seems to be the essential element. Umatzah, the lesser important
Because
element.
it's Shavuos and just Steyerlechen, and the Steyerlechen comes because of Shavuos.
Right. Okay, so it would seem to be that since you give out what is occurring for Shabbos first, right? Instead of Shavuos,
Yontif, right?
right? Instead of Yontif, that follows the Tadir lo Tadir.
Right.
Okay, implication. So what happens? Darash Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda says as follows: Lo kedivrei Rav de Amar Sukkah v'char kach zman. It's not like the words of Rav, who says that Sukkah and afterwards the time. El zman v'char kach Sukkah. But rather, he's claiming that it is the Shechianu and then Leishi. B'Rav Sheshet, B'Rei de Rav Idi Amar, he says, Sukkah v'achar kach zman. He argued, no, it was the Sukkah first, Leishem, and then Shechinu. And now all of a sudden we have a clear statement. The Hilchata Sukkah v'achar kach zman.
Except we don't do that. We do
Okay.
both,
Right.
actually.
Okay.
Most families do both.
All right. So that's what the Gemara tells us to try to answer that back and forth. Okay. Now we come back to our new item. All right, as follows. Mishamer shezmano kavua. All right, mishmar shezmano kavua, that the watch whose time was normally fixed, right? Bashar karbonot tzibur, and that they would do
All the other stuff.
most of the avoda, even though other watches might get a portion of some of the food.
The skin.
Okay. La'atuye mai, to include what? La'atuye par ha'elim davar shel tzibur, to include this, okay, animal that's considered a communal sin offering. Right?
Which is a very rare special
Right, that's a
case.
unique occasion.
And it
Usirei avodat kochavim.
same
And
thing.
also another unique, strange situation. This was the goats that had to be brought if somebody did avodah zarah.
So the
Okay, on the part of the
chiddush,
community.
The community.
the chiddush is that even though these are unique and they don't have a zman, they're occasional and situational. Nevertheless, you don't push it off because it's yontif. That's the chiddush of the Mishnah.
I'm not sure that I gather that.
Okay.
Okay, all right. I'm thinking it more in terms of I agree with you, even though these are occasional and not situational, the implications, right, situational. Who is the
watch guys
implication?
do it.
Is it the regular watch?
Yes, it's the regular
right,
watch.
and they get everything, or do they
Everything
share
but the
that?
skins, which we
That's what we're
learned
gonna
with
get
divvy
to.
up. But the point
get
is that we don't like have been discussions elsewhere. Are we daicha yontif for with this korban, or do we put it off till tomorrow? So here the chiddush is that if the Sanhedrin messes up and everybody follows them, you bring the korban immediately, even if it's Yantif.
Okay, well,
I
it
think
could
that
be.
because the Mishnah is talking about, all right, right
Listen.
there.
La'atuye mai to include what? La'atuye kites hamizbeach. That means to come to include those what we'll call the desserts, the extra korbanot that were made so that the mizbeach was never empty. Exactly. Matnitin, our new Mishnah. What do we have here? Okay, a new Mishnah that tells us Yom Tov Hasamuch l'Shabbat. Okay, when could that be? Either Friday or Sunday. Right? Right? Bein milefaneha, bein la'achareha. Whether it's before or whether it's after. Hayu kol hamishmarot shavot b'chiluk lechem hapanim. That they were all, the watches were all equal in regards to the distribution of the lechem hapanim, the showbread. Chal yot yom achad, or is it echad? Echad, okay? Now that's why I'm getting new glasses. Yeah, chal yot yom echad lahafsik bein time. If you have a day in between, okay, what happens? Mishmar shezmano kavua haya notel eser chalot. Then the fixed watch for that week, let's
It's been
say,
there all the way.
okay, they get 10 of the 12 loaves. V'hamitakev notel shtayim. And the leftover,
The
okay,
new guys get the
Right.
10, and the hangers on get only from the previous watch get only 2. or
okay,
whatever.
wait a second. Mishmash is mano kavua, the one that is in time, that's if it's a day ahead. Okay, so in other words, if it's Thursday, okay, that should still be the watch that is of that week. Okay, all right. So what happens though is that they don't, all right, so they get 10. All right, that fixed week. The new guys who are coming on Friday, okay, right, because they're going to start their week, okay, they're only going to get 2. Okay, so what happens here? All right, so that's
No,
okay, because all right, because the question is those who had to stay over. All right, so is it the new fellas that are coming on Friday? They're going to get the 10?
We're talking about Sunday. Yeah,
We didn't
yeah.
get there yet. Okay, okay, as the new guys who are coming, did they get the 10? Okay, and the fellows and the group that had to stay over since they can't leave in time, okay, they're the only ones who get the 2. Okay, so it seems to be that the new group that is now going to be for the next watch, they get the majority of the bread. Okay, and the group that's left over, okay, you only get the 2. Ubasha'ar Yemot Hashana says on the other rest of the days of the year, Hanichnas, the group coming in, gets 6, V'hayotze notel 6, and the group, the Mishmar exiting, gets 6. Okay? Now what happens? A little machloket. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, he says, Hanichnas notel 7, V'hayotze notel 5. The group coming in, he claims, gets 7, and the exiting Mishmar only gets 5. Okay. Now, we'll see that the Gemara probably has to come back and maybe deal with that. What happens now? Once they've gotten them, Hanichnasin cholkin b'tzafon. Okay, so then that Mishmar of Kohanim go to the northern area of the Azara, okay, and that's where they divide it up, okay, and that's where they get it. V'hayotzin b'darom, and those who are the exiting Mishmar, they go to the southern area of the Azara, okay, and that's where they get theirs. And now this Mishnah tells us about a particular Mishmar, okay, Bilga, the family of Bilga, the Kohanim of the Bilga family, okay, Le'olam choleket b'darom. They always are going to be dividing in the south. Not only that, but the Mishnah tells us, v'tava'ata kivu'ah, but their ring in which they would normally tie an animal to, okay, their ring is permanently closed. Art Scroll does have a good picture here on 56A4, note 43, okay, to give you an example, okay, of how the rings open and close to the door, the floor of the Beis Hamikdash, okay, and theirs was permanently closed, so which meant that it was an embarrassment
And
that they
also
had to
struggle to do the
use.
shechita.
Well, wait, we didn't get quite yet. It was an embarrassment for them to have to always go and use the ring of another priestly family. Not only that, okay, so one embarrassment was that they could only, even if they were the outgoing, they couldn't, they had to go, I mean, incoming, they still couldn't get their portion in the north. That was one embarrassment. The second was that their ring was permanently closed. And now a third embarrassment is presented, right? The chalona stuma, okay? That its niche or its crevice in the room where they kept the knives, okay? The chamber of knives, that also was permanently sealed, okay?
Were the follows given to them or did they take it themselves?
What?
Okay,
They left them up one in the
good
door,
question. All right, if I remember correctly, the Gemara is going to refer to the fact that two, and as they had four Kohanim, two from the, I'll call it the old watch, and two from the new watch. Okay, because remember, you always had to have lechem apanim there. So I believe when we studied it, they basically were, that said that as one group
Took it off.
slid it
Yeah.
out, the other two
Slid it
slid
out.
it in,
Uh-huh.
right?
We're never there.
Okay,
So they took it themselves?
No,
Well,
two representative
no,
Kahanim got them and went to the north and the
if
south.
you and I
picked
were
them up.
from one, okay, you brought it back to the rest of your mishmar. Okay, all right, so what happens? Gemara,
But didn't they bring in extra people for Yom Tov?
Everybody came for Yom.
No, I mean extra Kohanim to do the work. A
No,
lot of chagigas, you know, and,
No.
Only
the
the-
Mishmar got all of the korbanos, but all the other Kahanim got to share in the skins
yeah, but they had the
and
regular,
got to share.
they
in
had the
lechem
regular
hapanim.
rotation,
Right.
Yeah.
but then for Yom Tov, they brought in,
No, the regular, your Mishmar is your Mishmar. It's incorrect to think there were extra korbanos. Because if there were a lot of animals for Musaf, it took a long time, so they were fewer extras. But there were always korbanos on the Mizbeach. That's what they call a dessert.
No,
So
but-
the Mishmar who's on this week is working their heads off
No, they took
all
it-
week
they
long.
took it to Kabbalah, but what about the Chagigas, and the,
But- so again, they still have
That's
to
the other-
do all that.
yeah,
work.
I think there were
No,
others.
the other Cohen-
No,
I think
it said in the Mishnah, they
We'll
did
see.
all the.
All right, let's go
korbanos.
on. Mai milfanehu, mai melach aleha. What do we mean by before and by after? Ilema, if we're going to say lefaneha Yom Tov Rishon, that it was the, right, that the Yontif was on Sunday, first day. La'achareha Yom Tov Acharon. Maybe one was the first day of the holiday, the other was the last day of the holiday. Hainu Shabbat Shabbato Chachag. That would, if that's the case, if it's one is before and one is after, then you're talking about the Chol HaMoed
Right.
Shabbos. Ela lefaneha Yom Tov Achron. But what we're talking about here is that what was before it was the last day of the holiday.
So Shmini Atzeres was
Shmini
on
Atzeres was on
Thursday or
whatever.
Friday.
La'achareha Yom Tov Rishon. And afterwards, that Yontif actually started on Motzei Shabbos,
Or
and then
or
went on
Monday.
right? Yom Tov Rishon. My Tama, Kevan de Hani Mikadme, Vahani Ma'achle. Since we see that as a result in that situation, one mishmar had to come early and another mishmar had to remain late, Tiknu Rabbanan Milta, that the rabbis made an enactment, Ki hechi denichlu bahade hadade, that therefore they would wind up eating it all together. Okay. Now, Chal Yom Echad. Okay, so we get now to our Nun Vav Amud Beis. What happens? Okay, so the Gemara says, Vahani tarte maya vidataihu. Okay, so here, according to right Rabbi Yehuda's view, okay, what about these extra 2 loaves? Right, if he argued right that one group got 7 and 5, what happened to those extra 2? Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, says Rabbi Yitzchak, right? V'schar, right? His argument was v'schar hagefet dilatot. Okay, those the guys who handled the doors. Okay, that was their compensation.
The night of Shabbos,
Right,
the other group opened the doors in the morning, but the
they
new group
guys
shuts
closed.
them.
Right,
So that's extra work, so to speak.
Closing
so they
the
get
doors.
more bread.
the name alay dal badal. Okay, so one could argue. Okay.
Yeah, but it'll even
So
out
maybe
next
the
day.
Gemara says, well, let's say instead, so why don't you, if you got these extra 2, why don't you remove one for this week and remove one for the next week?
In other words, it'll even out next week.
Right. Amar Abaye, says Abaye's answer, Botsina Tava Mikra. Okay, now he's used what I would call a popular expression there, a one gourd or one cucumber, a what?
I never heard that one before.
No? Okay,
No, bird in the hand is what's doing the boat.
Right, in other words, right?
Cucumber is better now, is better than a watermelon in a month.
Right? Art Scroll translates it gourd. Cucumber was used by Koren, but the implication is better that you get the profit up front.
Did you see the Talmudology on that?
No, I didn't have
No,
a chance to yet. Okay, so that's the point, he says. All right, now, Amal Rav Yehuda. Okay, so Rav Yehuda, Ubla Musafin, and regarding the hides of the additional animals, Cholkin, that's what they would divide up. Okay, now, Meitive. We'll challenge this with the following. Mishmara hayotzeit, oset tamid shel shachar umusafin. We've got a braita that says that the outgoing watch, okay, they did the morning tamid and additional offerings. Okay, Mishmara hanichneset, the new incoming watch. What did they do? Oset tamid shel bein ha'arbayim uvizichin. They did the new, the tamid in the afternoon. Okay, and they did the what I call it, the spoons,
The spoons of
okay,
frankincense.
the frankincense.
They
Okay.
took off they took off the table when they took the lechem.
Right. Ve'elu musafin cholkin. And according to this braita, the additional offerings were divided up. Lo katani, but that's not Tana. Hi Tana bechaluka. Okay, but this Tana teaches that they were divided. Lo kamaire. Okay,
No,
right?
the high Tana.
Hi
Right,
Tana
so-
bechaluka
He
lo
doesn't
kamaire.
mention
He
dividing
doesn't
the
bring
lot.
in the discussion of how things were divided. In other words, whether it's the divided the bread. Amar Rav, says Rav, Vahatana, the Bei Shmuel, the Mare Chaluka. Okay, but he says the Tana of the Academy of Shmuel does bring in the discussion about dividing things up.
He mentioned dividing the
Okay.
bread.
Okay, Ubemusafin cholkin lo katani.
He definitely.
Okay, but in terms of dividing up the offerings, that's what he doesn't teach. He taught only about dividing the bread and not the offerings. The Tana de Bei Shmuel, as taught in accordance with the Academy of Shmuel, Mishmara Hayotzeit, Oset Hamid Shel Shachar, Umusafin, that the watch, according, right, who was outgoing, okay, did the morning tamid and the additional offerings. Mishmara hanichneset, the entering watch, oset tamid shel bein ha'arbayim u'v'zichim, and they did the tamid in the afternoon and the spoons of frankincense.
Now, here's the answer to your question.
Right, now what happens here, right? Arba'a kohanim hayu nichnasin sham. 4 kohanim entered, right? Shnayim mishmar mimishmar zo, ushnayim mimishmar zo. 2 from, well, I'm going to say the entering, and 2 from the exiting, right? V'cholkim lechem hapani, and they would divide up the lechem hapani. Ve'ilu b'musafin, but in regards to the additional offerings, cholkim lokatani, it didn't say how they divided up the additional offerings. Tiyuvta de Rav Yehuda, this seems to be a proof text against the view of Rav Yehuda. Tiyuvta, indeed, it's a proof text against his view. Okay, now going on a bit, hanichnasim cholkim b'tzafon. We said the entering mishmar divided up the bread in the northern section of the temple area. Tanu Rabbanan, this is a brighter. Hanichnasin cholkin b'tzafon, kadei sheyiru shehein nichnasin. They gathered there, so people would say that they are the entering mishmar. Vahayotzin cholkin b'darom, and the exiting mishmar, okay, would divide it up in the south. Kadesh Yeru Shehen Yotzin, and so that they would see that they were the exiting mishmar. Okay, Bilga. Remember, we said that Bilga was
Punished.
I was going to use the word punished, exactly. Okay, was punished through 3 embarrassing acts. So the Gemara has to deal with what was the act that resulted in the Mishmar of Bilga being punished. We're not going to do the entire Amud. We're just going to go up to a certain point, right? So we'll have a little bit to finish this evening. Okay? Tanu Rabbanan, Ma'aseh b'Miriam bat Bilga. There was an incident with Miriam, the daughter of Bilga. Shehemira data. She left Judaism. Okay? Vahalcha v'nis'et l'sardiot achad mimalchei Yevanim. And she went and married one of the officers of the Greek kings. K'shenichnesu Yevanim lehechal, and when the Greeks entered the Hechal, hayta meva'etet b'sandala al gabe hamizbeach. She went and kicked the mizbeach. Okay, va'amra, and she
She was
said,
wearing shoes too.
okay, Lucas, ad matai ata mechaleh mamonam shel Yisrael. Wolf. Okay, notice the Lucas here is the Greek. Okay, in other words, because the mizbeach, so to speak,
Takes all the
takes the
korbanos,
korbanos,
and
she
here
used
they
that.
didn't protect the Jews.
She used
from the
that
war.
parallel. Okay, ad matai. At what point do you? I'm going to say engorge. All right, in all of the possessions, the monies of the Jewish people, and then she added on top of that, "V'i ata omed alehem b'shas hadchan," and you do not
Help
protect
them when they're in trouble.
watch over them in their time of urgency. Okay, in other words, okay. Ukesheshamu chachamim b'davar, and when the sages heard about this situation, kavu et tabata,
Sealed up there.
they
okay?
sealed up the ring, visatmu et chalona, Okay, and they closed up the niche for the knives as well. Okay, so at this point,
Stop here.
no, I'm gonna just go a drop further. But at this point, I want to raise the question that the Gemara is gonna actually have to deal with. Because of her single act, why then was the entire Mishmar, the
Yes.
entire priestly family of Bilga, why were they all, so to speak, punished? Okay,
He must have been a prestigious member of the.
well, we don't know,
Well,
but we're gonna see.
the
At
Gemara
some
is
point.
going to deal with it right
V'yesh
now.
omrim, and there are those who say that that was not the reason for their
Because
punishment, but there was an alternative
the
reason.
lazy bum.
V'yesh omrim
Bum.
mishmarto shohalavam, that they were late, they were tardy, okay, delayed in coming. And what happened? V'nichnas Yeshevav achiv, and Yeshevav, who was the brother of
The
Bilga,
following Mishma.
okay, whose Mishma was the one next in line, so to speak. Imo v'shimesh tachtav, and they had his
They had to
people,
do half of his
okay,
job.
part of that. Afal pi sheshchine harshaim lo nishtakru, shchine bilga nishtakru. Shebilga laolam choleket b'darom b'shavav achiv b'tzafon. Okay, namely, to finish up there, okay, all right, so Yeshavav and his, at least part of
He
his
got two
Mishmar,
nights.
God came, and even though they want to say the friends, the associates of the wicked are not, don't usually benefit, they don't usually profit. Shchine Bilga Nishtakru. In this case, the Mishmar of Bilga still receives some benefit, right? Why? Because Shel Bilga Leolam Choleket B'darom, because they still receive a portion of the showbread, even though they have to divide it up in the south, and Yeshavav, his brother, divides it up in the north. So we'll stop right there. I'm going to pick up this afternoon there from Bishlema, okay, to finish the, okay. Tomorrow we start dealing with eggs and yontif. Okay,
Everybody have a safe.
Sima Tova, have a safe trip,
Taste them a shalom.
okay,
Well.
be well, enjoy the yontif, and we look to see you when you come back.
What was what was that? What was the yichus? Why did
They
they
were
have
Kohanim.
such protection? That they had this